residential tech talk, evangelist, lighting specialist, residential tech.
Welcome to Residential Tech Talks. I'm Jeremy Glowacki, Executive Editor of Residential Tech Today. On this week's podcast, Jason Knott joins us from Sturbridge, Massachusetts, to discuss the surprising news last week that he will be leaving his longtime post as Editor-in-Chief at CE Pro Magazine to join D-Tools, the provider of business management software for electronic systems integrators. In the newly created role of Data Solutions Architect and Evangelist, our guest today will work with a special team at D-Tools to define and deliver industry analytics and insights. Jason has been one of the hardest working people in the custom integration business during his long and well-respected editorial career. He's been a competitor of mine, but also a friend since we both got started in the residential tech industry back in 2000. I'm pleased to finally have the opportunity to have him on the podcast. Jason Knott, thanks for joining us today to talk about your career, your new role, and your industry observations.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy. I'm really excited to be here.
You know, you've been a very worthy and good industry colleague and competitor. I didn't even have to research your career that much for this interview. It's kind of rare that I didn't have to look into your past because I know it. We talk about it all the time, and I've seen you kind of go through the industry. I know where you came from. You've been in the low voltage electronics industry for the past 33 years. First as editor-in-chief at Security Sales and Integration, where I believe my wife Karen actually pitched you on stories from a PR agency representing Sony Security back then. You held the same role, obviously, at CE Pro since 2000, which is the same year that I also was hired by my former employer to start at Residential Systems Magazine. We've talked a lot recently about our respective roads in the past, looking ahead. And I know that there's a desire, at a certain point in your career for a change, right? But finding that next role outside of editorial is not easy. So can you share with us the process of basically creating this role for yourself at D-Tools?
Yeah, and thanks again for having me. And, Jeremy and I have been known each other for so long that I was about 50 pounds lighter back when we first met, and Jeremy had a full head of hair. So I don't know which one of us caused the other to have that issue, but it happened. So
right.
It was just really an interesting story, and one of the things that has happened as the industry has matured, the custom electronics industry, is that there has been this gap of data and research, and there's outside consultants, there's manufacturers, there's integrators, there's distributors, there's reps, there's investors who want to know what's going on in the professional installation space. And a lot of the attention goes to the consumer electronics level do-it-yourself products, which rightfully so. They're a much higher volume side of the business for sure. But very little data was collected. For CE Pro, we try to collect that data. We do our own research pieces on a semi-consistent basis, maybe 5 or 6 times a year. We'll dive into a particular category and we're just surveying our readers, telling us, hey, how many of these units did you sell? What was the price points? And it's all done not from real sales information, but from just asking them to recall what they've done or what they're doing or what they think they're going to do. So the interesting thing that's happening with D-Tools is D-Tools came out with D-Tools Cloud about 3 years ago, which is their cloud-based software that helps integrators run their businesses. So we're talking about all the way from the proposal stage through the management stage of the installation, through the inventory management, through project management, all those elements that they're gathering, and the ordering of the products. So they now have 1,000 users of this software, which is incredible. And they're collecting real data for the industry. So this is the first time that somebody's really collecting real sales information. And the beauty of it also is that, remember, a lot of the professional installation systems are ordered or proposals are done well in advance, so months in advance of when the actual installation starts. So it actually gives the market a glimpse and a forecast of what's coming down the pike. So if I'm a manufacturer or I'm a distributor, then I can see, oh my gosh, there is a spike in this particular whatever 100-watt amplifiers. I'm making that up, but some sort of specific product. And if I'm a maker of 100-watt per channel amplifiers, then I know, guess what? Hey, I'm seeing a lot of proposals go forth with that. I can adjust my factory orders or my inventory to accommodate for that. So that's what really excited me the most when I was hearing what D-Tools was doing. And we had a conversation about how we could share some of that information in CE Pro. And literally, I thought about it as soon as I hung up the conversation. I thought about it overnight and said, I could do that. I could write all those reports. I could help them disseminate this information, super valuable information to the entire industry, not just manufacturers, but integrators too, because it's going to talk about project size. It's going to talk about margin. It's going to talk about labor costs. All that stuff is being built into the software. So D-Tools has been putting this together, as a work in progress, and they're just getting to the point where this is going to actually happen, and they're going to be able to produce this information for the industry. And I think Randy Stearns, the CEO of D-Tools, put it correctly when he said Jason raised his hand, which is exactly what I did, and said, "Boy, I think I could do this for you." And literally within minutes, we had virtually consummated a deal where I was going to move over to D-Tools. So I'm super excited about it. As you said, I've been doing this for 33 years. I feel like I'm entrenched in the industry, and I know what integrators want from an informational standpoint. And it's exciting for me to be able to kind of disseminate this real data information and let them be able to guide their businesses and run their businesses better, which that's what's so funny. The mission statement of CE Pro is to help integrators run their businesses better. That's the stated mission of the publication and the website. And it's almost lock, stock, and barrel in line with D-Tools' mission, which as a software to help integrators be more efficient. It does the exact same thing. So I'm super excited about it. And I'm actually with CE Pro all the way till June 9th. So I gave 2 months of notice just to kind of help transition the publication. But then I'm actually could count on less than one hand how many days off I've taken in the last 2 years.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I'm going to actually have a couple of weeks off and get started with them right after the July 4th holiday.
That's awesome. Well, I too observed what you're talking about with that desire for industry data. And I mean, often I was even more shorthanded than you were. You did a lot with a little bit of staff, but I had like no staff a lot of times. And so people would ask me, would you do something like this? Could you get like an early indicator kind of tool together for us? And it's like, yeah, it sounds great, but I don't know where I'd find the time to do that or what the resources would be. It's just so much, legwork. And I would turn folks to your research. I'd turn them to Parks research, obviously CTA and that sort of stuff. But it was never really that definitive. So this is great. Did you have to learn any new? Are you going to have to learn any new sort of ability to work with the tools like the software and things like that to find the data, or is the team kind of in place to help you do that, and then you just do the analysis and the presentation to the industry? How's that going to work for you?
Yeah, no doubt I'm going to have to learn a lot of that, because I'm going to want to have to slice and dice based upon whatever the particular need of whatever I need to pull out of there, or whatever the request may or may not be. So yeah, no, I'm going to have to learn that, and that's going to be an interesting thing. But maybe this old dog can learn a new trick
For sure.
on software. I mean, think about this. You and I were, old school print guys that had to learn the internet and video and all those sorts of things. So I'm excited by the challenge there.
Yeah, and tell me about this industry. In the press release, I was trying to rewrite, and I didn't do such a great job with my introduction today. My words kind of got jumbled, but I was trying not to say the word insights over and over again, because that was part of what the title of the group, the team was, and then that's what you're providing. And so, it's obviously it's data, it's research. What is the data, or what's the D-Tools Industry Information Insights team? Was that formed as part of the initiative that you learned about, that you felt like you could help with, or what does that mean?
Yeah, no, they already have had that I3 team in place already, and that is already an existing relationship they have with many manufacturers and distributors, where the manufacturers who join that I3 program then have their information, as well as like pricing information, specifications, all that sort of stuff, uploaded into the D-Tools software. So they already have that relationship a relationship with many manufacturers, in terms of being able to have their data up on the site for the integrators to be able to build their proposals and order the product and all that sort of stuff, estimate their labor, etc. But this is going to go well beyond that.
Gotcha. And obviously working for someone as smart as Randy Stern, CEO of D-Tools, who is an MBA. He was one of our more respected leaders of an integration company before he went to work for D-Tools. Tim Bagonis, great guy, Chief Marketing Officer, VP of Sales there. I could see where it'd be really appealing to work with that leadership as well. I'm sure you're excited about getting to work with them directly.
You know what? No doubt. That was one of the things that made this even more of a comfortable situation for me, is because I've known those guys for such a long time, and you hit the nail on the head. They're just genuine, really nice guys. And, we see each other at the buying group meetings. We see each other at the trade shows. We see each other at the tech summits and all those sorts of events where we've gathered over the years. So it made this, there was no anxiety from my standpoint of what I'm walking into from a personal standpoint, because they're stand-up guys, and I'm really excited to be working with them.
Well, and you're leaving this long respected role. The response, I know you mentioned off air that you've had so many phone calls, and I know I've seen all the comments when I posted about your change. I've seen all the comments come out. I've seen comments from your own posts. So many people just really giving you accolades for everything you've done, and how much they love you in the industry. So that must feel really good just to have like a victory lap before you go on to your next thing.
You know what makes me even feel better, Jeremy, is when you look at them, there wasn't, at least I didn't see any where somebody said, "What are you doing?"
Oh yeah.
Everybody was, "Wow, what a perfect fit."
Yeah.
And so that makes me feel even more comfortable that everybody sees the synergy of what I've been doing for the last, 33 years, and what D-Tools is now going to be doing. So that's what made me even feel better, was there wasn't any doubters in there saying, "Gee, this is kind of crazy," or "This is kind of different," or "What the hell are you doing?" So the only funny comment that I got was actually from my mom.
Oh, I heard that. I saw this. Yes.
Yeah. So my new title, which is, I know, a bit long-winded, but it's Data Solutions Architect and Evangelist. And I talked to her on the phone. It was kind of this pregnant pause, and she goes, "My son, the minister." So I got to.
Please tell me that was a joke, right? She's not losing it.
No.
Oh no, she really did.
She literally said,
"Oh my God,
my son, the minister."
She's so proud.
Yeah.
You finally did it. Well, we will continue our conversation with Jason Knott after the break. Today's episode of Residential Tech Talks is brought to you by NICE, the global manufacturer of smart home security and building automation solutions. NICE is bringing together 30 years of innovation with award-winning products from ELAN, SpeakerCraft, and Panamax to create a holistic ecosystem for builders, integrators, and consumers. Learn more about how you can create one home with one solution at go.nice ceproforyou.com/RTT. Welcome back. We're talking with Jason Knott, editor-in-chief of CE Pro Magazine, but soon to be a minister with D-Tools. So we'll let that one sink in. So I want to mention before we move on that, as they say in sports, in a corresponding move, Emerald, the company that owns CE Pro, has promoted longtime staff member and all-around good guy Arlen Schweiger to editor-in-chief of CE Pro. So congrats to Arlen. Really good guy, another industry friend, somebody I'd love to see around at events. So happy to see him promoted. He's earned it. He's been with the magazine for a long time. So I'm sure you're pleased with that, being able to hand off to Arlen.
Yeah, and you know what makes me even more invigorating is when he and I were having the conversations about this transition, he already had ideas, new ideas, that he wants to implement that, for some reason or another, I never wanted to or never, had the energy to do.
Yeah.
So he's going to bring a whole new level of energy that's super exciting. He's been with me for 17 years. And I always like to say, Arlen is so smart. He was on Jeopardy.
Oh yeah,
So,
I forgot about that.
So he is like, way smarter than me times 10, which is awesome. So don't ask him how he did on Jeopardy.
Oh, okay.
But he was on Jeopardy.
Yeah. Well, getting there's most of the battle. So I respect it totally. But yeah, that's great. And I mean, to be personal, I'll definitely miss seeing you at events. I know we'll cross paths at other stuff, but Arlen, is one of those people that I've just really enjoyed being around as well. So I think the industry will already know him very well, obviously, and they'll take to him in that expanded role. And hey, heck, you were telling me you were basically doing so much other stuff for CE Pro that the day-to-day on the magazine was probably mostly Arlen, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We have, not just the print publication, which, yes, people may, know we still have a very vibrant print, monthly CE Pro print. We've been doing these research items, as I mentioned, not just these deep dive pieces, but also we do a state of the industry report. We do a quest for quality survey. We do the CE Pro 100, the CE Pro 100 brand analysis, all of this kind of data crunching that I've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I also make this is kind of a seamless transition, because I have been doing a lot of data analysis with just our own data. Plus we have a really strong custom content division and the website, and as you know, the website is, it's a daily deadline.
Yeah.
It's daily. We have goals to do 6 to 8 pieces of content every single day between the entire team. Sometimes those are difficult to set that time aside. And Jeremy and I are longtime friends, and we would talk about, when do you get your work done? At night.
Yeah.
On the weekends. So, I might be trading in 60-hour work weeks for 70-hour work weeks. I don't know, but I really don't. But it'll be different, and it'll be a new challenge for sure.
Well, before we talk more current stuff, I wanted to just kind of jump back for a minute and ask you, for those who don't know, how does an editor get into this business? How do you get into being an editor? I went to college and studied journalism. I thought I was going to go into TV or film, but I ended up in print and then fell into the AV space. But I know you started on security publishing first, but how did you get into publishing in the first place?
So actually, I was on 2 magazines before I was on security sales in 1990. So back in 1980, I just same as you, went to journalism school, and always loved writing. And the first magazine that I was on was called School Bus Fleet.
Oh, yeah.
So I was in Los Angeles. So I always get a kick out of telling the stories. I remember going to a Halloween party, and it was my sister worked in the record industry. So there was all these, very attractive people there. And then there was me, and so I'm mingling around the party, and I can remember walking up to this group and having a great conversation. And I can remember a lot of people in LA everybody's writing a script.
Oh, yeah.
Where everybody, all the waiters and waitresses are, actors waiting for their first, break and those sorts of things. So I can remember vividly talking to a group of people and they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a writer." And there was this instant, "Oh my gosh, what screenplay? Tell us about this. What do you do?" I'm like, "Oh no, I work on School Bus Fleet magazine."
Yeah.
And and there was kind of this blank stare, and then they all just walked
Yeah.
away. But it's funny. I can say this. There's, I think it was at the time, 12 or 15,000 school bus operators in the United States, both either districts or independently owned, contractors, and their 100% mission is for the safety of
Mm.
children on school buses. And I loved it. It's all what you make of it.
Yeah.
It's all, we make our own stress, but we also make our own enjoyment. And I really liked it. It was a really fun industry to write for. And then I transitioned to security in 1990. And let me also point out, one of the reasons I think you and I both love this industry so much is because it's entrepreneurial. These are small businesses, for the most part, very small businesses, who, when they read what we write about, they're looking at it and it's influencing them to try out a new product or try a new operation or try a new installation technique or whatever it might be, a new combination of products, a new conversation with customers. And when I get that face-to-face feedback from somebody who's read something that I wrote and then they implemented it and it worked, I feel like $1,000,000.
Right.
It's so rewarding.
Yeah. I agree with you. The industry is very accessible, whether it's the manufacturers or the integrators, everybody in between, everyone. It's very down to earth, very, like I said, accessible. You're not dealing with big corporations necessarily. I mean, there are some big manufacturers in there. There's the Sonys and the Samsungs of the world, but there are still people at the ground level that you can relate to and know. But the integrators themselves, for sure. And I would sometimes get overwhelmed thinking, who am I to tell these guys what they should be doing in their business, and they know better than I do. They're doing it day to day. And then I would be surprised by being at an event and they'd ask me my opinion on something or a product or a trend. And it would be a little like surprising. And I would go, wait a second, I have to think this through. Here's what I'm hearing. Try not to be too definitive about it, but that's kind of our job, right?
Yeah, and I would say storytellers. We're not making them up, but we're just putting in print and on online the feedback that we're hearing from other people. We're a conduit
Yeah.
for that information. Is really what we are. We're not saying you should do this or you should do that. We're telling case studies and stories of actual things that are happening to enlighten an integrator to say, "Oh my gosh, let me try that. That's interesting." I read that article that Jeremy wrote. Let me try. That sounds interesting. I'm going to give that a shot. We're just repeating back that information we're hearing from the market itself.
Exactly. I was thinking, I don't want to put you on the spot with this, but when you think about your impact like that, as you're describing, do you feel like there was something that you really made a difference with? I think of something that's kind of funny that you told me, and I don't remember if someone told you this or you thought of it about your tombstone and what words would read on it. Do you remember that story?
I do, yeah, and it's funny when I was anticipating that exact answer.
Okay.
So coming from the security side, and the security business is a recurring revenue business. So it's just like when your kids go to the orthodontist, and every kid in that room is paying $99 a month to the orthodontist for 2.5 years while they get their teeth straightened. The orthodontics business is a recurring revenue business model. The security business is a recurring revenue business model. So I was the editor of CE Pro starting in 1990, and people don't remember the Telecom Act of 1996 that freed broke up the bell companies, the regional bell companies, and freed them to move into the security space. So everybody was clamoring in 1996 to, oh my gosh, every security integrator is going to go out of business because it's all you're going to buy your security stuff from Ameritech or 9X or Pacific Bell or one of those regional bell companies. So there was this big migration of integrators from the security space into home entertainment. And that's how I kind of followed that path in 2000.
Mm.
But I was surprised when I came over to CE Pro in 2000 how little recurring revenue integrators were doing in their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't have service agreements in place. They were in most cases not even doing the security themselves. They were partnering with a security company and letting them do that. And I think it makes me feel great that I see an increased focus in the custom electronics space on service and recurring revenue as part of their business models, because that's one, it's better for the customer because you're in touch with them on a consistent basis. You're constantly upgrading their system. So it's better for you because you're getting upgrades all along. It's not a one and done and I hope this customer never calls me scenario anymore. And then last but not least, it's a value generator for your business if you ever want to have an exit strategy. Right. So that has been the most rewarding thing. And the story about the tombstone is that I made a decision right away. I'm going to start writing about RMR, recurring monthly revenue, on a very consistent basis and the value of it in CE Pro. And one guy told me years ago, he's like, when you die, your tombstone isn't going to say RIP. It's going to say RMR.
That's it.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I knew it was
so
something like that. Perfect.
It was a long-winded answer to your question.
No, it's exactly what I was going for. I feel like that is one of your legacy points as editor. And I would say that I was somewhat baffled for a long time for the focus on security. I know why it was there, but well, there was more to it than that. Obviously, Ken Moyes and Julie Jacobson both came from security as well, right? That was a big focus for them. And so you had a lot of that in your coverage, whereas I was kind of coming up from more the entertainment, the audio side with our publishing company. And so security was kind of an afterthought. And I kept hearing, oh no, I outsourced that as an integrator. So why would we focus on that? But it made sense that that's an important and probably a foundational part of a home electronics setup is securing your home. It was just in flux there with who was going to do it and when and all that stuff. So,
and it's a two-way street. I think the security industry is learning from the custom electronics space that they shouldn't be giving away systems for nothing in exchange for a 5-year monitoring contract. They can charge an upfront fee or more substantial than they have been. And so we've seen, back in the early 90s, security systems were free. They were giving them away in exchange for the monitoring contracts. And you don't see that anymore. Even the biggest companies, there's a fee associated with the gear and a minimal labor fee. They're still subsidizing their systems to a certain extent, but not like they were. Mm-hmm. So both sides have learned, both markets have learned, and of course the big crossover point there is video surveillance.
Right.
There's still not many states have requirements for licensing to install video surveillance systems, but they do for intrusion and certainly for fire alarm systems. So a lot of integrators have made security cameras a staple part of their business. And again, 20 years ago, nobody wanted cameras in their house or around their house. Now, everybody's got cameras. They got video doorbells and they got cameras and everywhere. So that level of privacy is kind of like come down, mm-hmm. and cameras are the big crossover point now.
Right. And, similarly with the service plan, I was just on the Resi Week podcast, which I know you've been in the past, and we talked about the Savant Software as a Service program. And I was just wondering what you thought of that from your years of observing recurring RMR and all that, and whether you thought the idea of software as a service from a control standpoint in the home kind of fit in interestingly to what you're pushing for there.
Yeah, no, I think it fits in perfectly. And I think that they're trying to force feed the integrator to recognize that we all need to have firmware upgrades on our phone on a consistent basis. Everything electronic needs to be updated. And in fact, I think it was the April issue had a very interesting cover story of Total Home Technology in New Jersey, and he had a great line. He goes, "My job begins when the installation finishes." Because anybody can do the install. In his opinion, anybody can do the install, but not everybody can service the customer beyond that. And if you look at just the security industry as a benchmark, the typical security monitoring contract is like 3 years or 5 years or whatever, but the customers do not change their service for on an average 11 years. So now in the custom electronics industry, it's got to be way higher than that because you're putting in many more electronics. These are customers for life. And so it makes sense for the customer and it makes sense for the integrator to have an ongoing service-based relationship. And I think Savant's probably they're on the bleeding edge of this, in terms of trying to get integrators to do this. And years ago, Control 4 tried it with their Foresight program, and it didn't work to have integrators charge. But now I think the mindset has changed. We're seeing consistently, and I'll be really excited to see the details data, the percentage of revenue that is coming from recurring revenue versus what it was in the past.
And while we're on that topic, I'm curious now, with your role, will you be servicing or will you be feeding that information on a media level as well, not just to the industry stakeholders, but also as press releases to your former colleagues and me?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the plan, to be able to expose the industry, bring this, valuable information. Obviously, it'll be, tiered, and there'll be a ton behind the curtain, but yeah, that's the plan, to be able to elevate the entire industry with great information.
Yeah, so I'm sure there's like a revenue need there as well because you're paying for the roles that are handling all this, including your role. So if a company wanted to get a lot deeper into that research, similar to like how Parks Associates has certain information they release publicly, but then if you want to get the full report, you might pay for it. Is that sort of what you mean there in terms of the plan?
Partially, it'll be much more detailed than that, in that it will be, the idea is that a manufacturer, let's just say, will actually subscribe.
Okay.
It'll be a recurring revenue resource for D-Tools potentially, for a manufacturer to say, look, I want to see this. I want to see the 100 watt per channel amplifiers that are being spec'd on a weekly basis.
Yes.
Or I want to see it on a quarterly basis, or I want to see 14 categories of equipment on a weekly basis, or on a quarterly basis, or on a daily basis, or whatever the number might be. So yeah, it'll be much deeper than just these one-off reports.
Got it. Okay, cool. Well, as we kind of wrap up our conversation, I was curious what two things, like what you think, what you're hoping your new role will allow you to do more of. Are you going to be able to breathe a little bit more because you're not on these deadlines like you've been? I know there's going to be different kinds of deadlines. Are you going to get to play a little more golf? I know you've been a golfer in the past and you play at industry events, but not probably as much as you could in a different role. And what will you maybe miss about being an editor?
Well, the one thing I'll say is I'm a workaholic. So, and I said it earlier, we make our own stress, and so I have always made my own work ethic in terms of how hard I work. So I don't know if you can flip that switch off.
Probably not.
We'll see, or at least turn it down a little. Maybe I'm at 11. I need to go down to 10, the Spinal Tap reference here. But that'll be the, I think the transition for me is to maybe kind of turn down the volume a little bit on terms of how hard I've been working. But um, I'm so excited about the potential of this that, like I said, I could be trading in, 70-hour work weeks for 80-hour work weeks. I don't know where I'm ultimately going to end up. But to answer your question, I would love to play more golf, although I played last weekend and I played terrible. So maybe that's a bad wish. I don't know.
Well, do you think you'll miss certain things about being an editor?
Yeah, I'm still going to be writing, which is, I think what I love to
Yeah,
do,
me too.
and I'm, prolific, and I think I'm pretty good at it. So I'm hoping to continue that. Um, there'll be, hopefully less travel, so I can be able to go to my daughter's hockey games and my daughter's lacrosse games and not feel guilty. Every time that "Cats in the Cradle" song comes on the radio, I turn it off because I feel too guilty about hearing that dang song. So maybe I'll be able to listen to that song and not feel so bad
Right,
anymore.
there you go. Well, I'm imagining that you'll probably at least be at some of the major trade shows, just because that's a good kind of look at what things are in the industry to match up with your data. Is that true for you? You'd be at a CEDIA Expo and CES, that sort of thing?
Yeah, and hopefully, presenting some of the data so that people can see this and exposing it, from that standpoint, and then talking to the integrators, talking to the distributors, talking to the manufacturers, about, what we can produce for them, and give them guidance on their business. So yeah, no, I'll still be at the major shows for sure.
But a lot different than having to basically run the entire smart stage for Emerald, which is a lot.
Yes, I think I did 9 sessions there last year. So my time on the show floor, CD Expo, was the last day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I will definitely get more time there, and uh, it'll be, I don't want to say, it's kind of awkward. You don't want to say I'm looking forward to working
Right.
less,
No. Yeah.
because that's not the case. So, um, uh, but it's definitely was getting to that breaking point where I needed to change. So this was completely fortuitous. Like I said, how it came about was not, you know anything that I sought out. It was just the light bulb went off as soon as I heard the idea, and I went, "Oh my gosh, this is a phenomenal idea,"
Yeah.
and I think I can contribute to it.
Yeah, what you say in a public forum, I totally get it. I don't know if people truly understand how much you put on your shoulders and how much work you've done. I mean, I was taking a walk with my wife the other day, and I was telling her about your move, and I said, the guy even took on office manager role before you went to a virtual office, and I'm like, that's above and beyond. You're ordering toilet paper for your company, you're doing it all, and you're doing all these panels for everybody, and I can handle one, and then I'm exhausted. So I can't imagine doing 9 or whatever the number was you said. And by the way, when we were at the Lightapalooza conference earlier this year, and you sat and watched my panel discussion, which I didn't organize. Tom Doherty organized it. He just asked us, to be the moderators. But you complimented the panel, and it meant so much to me that you were there and you complimented the panel, even though you weren't necessarily directly complimenting me. You're complimenting the content of the panel. But I was trying to take it as a compliment of me. And then I tried to gild the lily by asking for more compliments about me. And you said, "Oh, yeah, you're a regular David Frost." That was one of the funniest damn things he could have said, and totally knocked me down a notch, and I loved it. So
Well,
it was great having you there, and seeing how you did things and being able to be a part of it, but understanding, like, I could not do all. I mean, you did multiple panels at that thing too, and it wasn't even your event. So you've earned a little bit of a break, even if you're still going to be working really hard. And we know D-Tools is listening, and they're going to say, this guy's going to work hard. We know what he's up to. He's a workaholic. He's going to still do it. So
well, just to give you a sense, I looked, again. I said my last day on CE Pro is June the 9th, and I have 51 pieces of content that I plan to write between now and then.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of which is a feature on your panel. So which was a great
Oh,
panel. So
hey,
yeah,
that moderator is really good, right? Like that guy that was.
he was.
Well, hey, man. Thanks so much, Jason, for taking the time out today. It's a really cool honor to be able to talk to one of my competitors on a podcast, and not something we would normally do. But now that you're moving on to a different role, it's a great opportunity to talk as friends and do it publicly. I can't wait to run into you at events and feel like you're not completely running 5 different directions. And hopefully we can have a great chat at CEDIA Expo probably the next time.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on, Jeremy.
Jason Knott will take on his new role as Data Solutions Architect and Evangelist for D-Tools in July. Until then, you can find him in the pages of CE Pro Magazine. Learn more about D-Tools at d-tools.com. And that wraps up today's show, which was produced by Residential Tech Today, IPW, and Pretty Easy Podcasts. Go to prettyeasypodcast.com if you're looking to get professional production help on your own podcast at an affordable rate. If you're new to Residential Tech Talks, please subscribe to the weekly podcast wherever you listen or watch podcasts. Also, check out all the latest residential tech news at the magazine's website, restechtoday.com, where you can also subscribe to the print or digital magazine and to our Tuesday and Friday email newsletters. Until next time, please stay safe, stay inspired, and let us know if you have a great story to tell.
Residential Tech Talk, Panamax lighting specialist, residential tech.
Home automation, smart device, home or smart house.